Played for 13 years, won an extraordinary 85 caps. She was the Ireland captain from 2008 to 2014, 11 All-Ireland League medals, and of course was the 2013 captain of the Grand Slam winning Ireland's women's rugby team. But moreover, was the captain of the first Irish team ever to beat a New Zealand team, the Black Ferns. And she's also the ambassador for the Women's Rugby World Cup 27, which will be held in our beloved country. So would you give it up, ladies and gentlemen, for Fiona Coghlan. So this could run over because I'm chatty, but Fiona is even more chatty. So we'll try and keep to something, but here we go. I suppose maybe tell people a little bit about how you got into sport in general, because it's sometimes difficult for young women to get into sport or girls to get into sport. And why rugby?
Yeah, I suppose as a kid, I kind of got involved in everything. My parents threw me into tennis and horse riding, and then went to secondary school and it was all team sports. I found that was my niche, was team sports. I was kind of jack of all, master of none. Rugby for me at that stage was just a social scene. You know, you go to the rugby club for pre-internationals. And when I say the respect that I felt in a club was just unbelievable. They had a vision of women's rugby where they wanted to see it go, and we got treated exactly the same as the men's team. We got everything they got. We didn't have to fundraise or make sandwiches like some clubs did. And you know, that's the reason I stayed with them for 10 years when I moved back up to Dublin and travelled down every week. And people were like, oh, you're getting well paid. No, I was definitely losing money with the petrol, but it was worth it because I had respect. And I suppose it helps when you're winning, and we did win 11 AILs.
And was it the same when you started in the Irish rugby scene, front of the bus, nice plush hotels? I'm sure it was.
No, that's when a real eye-opener happened. So 2003 was my first cap, and we weren't even affiliated with the IRFU at that stage. We were out on our own, fundraising, red-eye flights. It was madness really to think when you're preparing to play at such a high level that you're sleeping on floors and anything you can to get more time together. But things were improving, and you know, first of all, our results, we were the wooden spooners of the competition for numerous years. You don't actually get a wooden spoon, but thankfully, coming last, and then you'd get a win, or you might score a try against England, and that sounds really stupid, but when you go from being beaten 79-0 to then scoring a try against them, it's a small success. And eventually, 2008, we were brought in under the IRFU, fully affiliated, and again, things did improve, but not to the standard that you'd expect for an elite team. And I suppose there was no media coverage at all. The first time we got any media coverage was in 2012. We had a nightmare trip from Paris down to Po on an overnight train that I expected was like the Orient Express. No, don't ever go on an overnight train. It's like a cattle mart. But we arrived in at 7 o'clock in the morning to play a game at 1 o'clock that day. And I suppose for me at that stage, it was a galvanising moment for the squad. The way they reacted was so maturely that we just had to get on with it. We couldn't control it. We had to get on with it. And it was really galvanising. And from there, I think it brought us even further, and then to 2013.
Did that bring the team together, or was that one moment in many that made you realise we're making progress, or we have to make something very different happen?
Oh, there was loads. There was loads of little wins throughout the years. 2008, we got a draw against France. You know, the quality of players coming into the squad because they'd started at a younger age. Most of us had started in our late teens, 20s, some people in their 30s. So to see young girls coming in, for me, was a brilliant win because there's pathways there for them that we never had. But I suppose you need really galvanising moments, and that was one. And particularly, again, back to exposure and visibility, we got a lot of exposure about that 2012 kind of fiasco, but they were writing about our travel. They weren't writing about how well we played the next day. Yeah, we lost by a point when we played, and the girls were like, well, why are we not getting this exposure? Yeah. And I basically said, we have to do something special. We have to win something to get the exposure that we deserve.
So 2013, obviously, at least in the minds of most people, was the breakthrough. Obviously, there were other breakthroughs for you, as you talked about. Tell us something about the highlights of winning the Grand Slam.
Yeah, like it's obviously fabulous to have a nice shiny trophy at the end of it, but it's consistency over 5 games and being able to perform at that level over 5 games, home and away. It's tough, and to see the squad develop. You know, most people wouldn't have seen the Welsh game, but we robbed it from them. We scored probably the best try we've ever scored in the dying phases of that game. So there was loads of highlights throughout it. Beating England and holding them scoreless, beating them for the first time was obviously very, very special. And I suppose, again, having the game on TV was huge for us. First women's game ever was the last game against Italy. It was an horrific game of rugby. It was nothing pleasant to watch about at all, but it had people on the edge of their seats because it was so close and in horrific conditions. And as I said, a nice shiny trophy at the end of it.
And it was on International Women's Day that year, I think, was it? There or thereabouts?
That week, yeah, it was that week. Yeah, so it was Paddy's Day actually, so
Paddy's
it was
Day,
before,
sorry.
yeah.
So tell me, obviously you beat the All Blacks. Did Rory Best respond to the text you sent him on the 5th of November last year saying what took so long?
I suppose, look, it was brilliant to beat New Zealand.
You're not going to answer that question, are you?
No, for me, it's never a competition between us. Like, obviously, it was brilliant for our Irish women's team to do it. For Ireland, for women's rugby, it like blew the competition wide open. But to see the men do it then afterwards was brilliant. And, you know, it's a monkey off their back, and hopefully they'll continue to do it for any more years, and likewise with the women's team.
When you went on the pitch, so in the build-up and all the experience you've had of building a team, a strong team, when you went on the pitch, did you really fundamentally believe you could beat
the
Black Ferns?
It was the lead up into that week. The structure of the World Cup is really ruthless. Basically, you have to win every game to get out of your pool into a semi-final, and USA was a huge opposition for us. So that's all we focused about before the competition was our first game against USA. So once we'd beaten them, put it to bed, we had things to improve on. But that week there was such a buzz in the camp. There really was confidence. We spoke a lot about the last 20 minutes. We knew we were fitter than them. We knew if we were in the game at that point that we could go on and win it. And I suppose athletes talk about flow and flow games, and it was we were all on the same page, even when things went wrong, that we regrouped and reassessed where we were at, and we went back at them again. And we got stronger in the last 20 minutes.
And the previous panel talked about, you know, putting yourself in a position where you feel you get into a flow in your career or in rugby. Is there an analogy between, people talk about sport and business are very similar. Do you think there's an analogy in life that you can get into a flow in a certain point, you realise you're in it and you make the most of it?
Yeah, it's a momentum thing. It's having the right, first of all for me, it's having the right people around you, and that's one of the strongest things I had. The teammates and management that I've had the whole way through have been phenomenal, and what they've given to the sport has been brilliant. So it's about having really strong people around you that you trust and that they're all passionate about the same thing. Then it's about having those, I suppose, pathways or structures and plans in place around those really strong people. And then finally, the pennies and money did come into it at the end. But if we didn't, it would have been wasted money unless we had the people and the plans.
How difficult was it to at least retire from the game?
Yeah.
Unfair question. But
no, it was. And to be honest, I'm still struggling with it. I miss it hugely. I'm badly playing Gaelic football. But I suppose it was the end of the cycle. I'd been playing for so long. We weren't in high performance. We were under the domestic game of the RFU, which was a bugbear for me. After the World Cup, they were brought into the high performance, which was huge. 6 months later, we're hosting a Women's World Cup. If I had foreseen the Women's World Cup coming to Ireland, would I have stayed on? I don't know. My mind says yes, but my body maybe not. While I was in brilliant shape in 2014, I just don't know whether the body would have been up for another 3 years. So, yeah, I'm still struggling. I'd say I wrecked the girls' heads with texts before and after games and analysing games, and I'm still obviously hugely involved and passionate about it and want to see it grow, and having the World Cup coming here is brilliant.
And as the ambassador for that, what do you really want Ireland and yourself and the game to achieve? Because it's definitely on the map. If we talk about putting women on the map, we talk about putting the country on the map and making a statement. What do you really want to achieve over the next 18 or 12 and a bit months?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit early in the next 18 months, but I want women's sport to have the respect in society that it deserves and normalise it. But in 18 months' time, if we can get more people engaged in any sport, rugby would obviously be brilliant, but in any sport, that would be huge. And we're putting Ireland on the map. This is a global tournament. And it's huge for Ireland to be hosting it, you know, and rugby in Ireland is in such a key place at the moment. And then looking towards 2023, like we find out after the women's event whether we'll get 2023. So it's a huge platform for that, and we need to get fans out and fill the venues.
You heard that, okay. Ticketmaster, I'm sure, will be delighted. We've talked about sponsorship and visible sponsorship, and sponsorship can take two forms. It can be a kind of a monetary thing, that's important, but then there's people that go the whole way with you. Maybe talk about your relationship with Aon and how important that has been in terms of the development and looking forward, because I think that's extraordinary.
Yeah, for years I stood at Six Nations launches with all the captains, male and female, from all the other countries, and we had a blank spot on our jersey. like at the time, it wasn't something that I gave a huge amount of thought to because it wasn't really something that I could control. But when people are saying it, you're like, yeah, why don't we have a sponsor on a jersey? But you just get on with it and you do what you're there to do, which is go out and perform. But after we'd no sponsor on a jersey for the Grand Slam win, and Cullum Diamond, that was in Aon, he had read it in the business section of the papers one day, and he thought it was ridiculous. I couldn't understand why this high-performing team didn't have a sponsor. And they came on board then in January 2014 for that Six Nations, and have been there ever since, and are now gone to sponsor the World Cup as well. But you know, obviously there is a monetary value, but for the people like Cullum and everyone involved in Aon, it's been their support. You know, there's a really close bond between the team and the sponsors. I call them supporters, and they're part of that family. With Irish women's rugby, it's a real family kind of culture. We've a really strong culture of family, and they're part of that family now. And I hope they're getting as much from the sponsorship as we've got from them supporting us along the way. And hopefully it's just going to continue to grow with the Women's Rugby World Cup.
And if, well, I have two questions because the red screen as usual. We'll just keep going. It's much more fun for me. Women's Rugby World Cup, can we win it?
As I said earlier, the structure of it's really difficult. You have to win basically every pool game to ensure that you get into the semi-final or it's next best runner-up over three. I think we have the best pool to get out of. You know, we avoided the heavy hitters, England, New Zealand and Canada. We do have France, but we beat them 2 weeks ago, so that's a really good positive. Australia, I think we should beat them, and Japan, we should beat them. So it's that key French game at the end. And obviously on our day, we can beat any team. So get into the semi-final, then it just depends who you draw against. And if there's a squad depth, we didn't have it in 2014. We didn't have that depth of squad to be able to rotate players enough to go on to a final. But hopefully now we're in such a positive place that they can.
And the men's game for 1 second, am I allowed to ask that?
Yeah, definitely.
Any day after Patrick's Day, England coming?
Yeah, this weekend's going to be...
This weekend's tough.
It's huge. You know, Wales aren't the team that they have been in the past. Going to the Cardiff Millennium Stadium is a tough place to go to, but I think the Irish team, after that first loss to Scotland, I think they're going to be in a really good place. And yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting day after Paddy's Day. But on Paddy's Day, hopefully we have the women going for a Grand Slam and the 20s as well. So actually Aon are running a competition to win tickets to the match on a jersey. So get upstairs and get your picture taken. Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
And finally, because this will start flashing now. Finally, so you've had an extraordinary career in every dimension. When you look back, is there anything you do very differently? And secondly, what would you say to people in the audience or to the next generation? What can they look forward to? What should they absolutely make sure they do?
Yeah, I think it's definitely looking forward, and what you should definitely do is take every opportunity that's offered to you and go gung-ho at it, because if that rugby opportunity hadn't come around and me playing for the opposite team, I don't know where I'd be. If the opportunity's not there and you want to do something, go and create the opportunity for yourself, and again, go gung-ho at it. With regards to what I'd change, like looking back, there's probably, you know, you could look at games and decisions you made, but that's harping on. I suppose the way that we bring players in, and I think it's significantly improved, but at the start it was quite young and we were quite, I suppose we didn't have the knowledge, where now the game has evolved, that we have the knowledge that we're empowering players more and making them take ownership of themselves. And I think that's really important to put people out there and let them make mistakes, and they learn from mistakes, but guide them, give them the right guidance that if they do make a mistake, that they have the support there behind you. And probably in the early days we didn't do that enough. We started to do it more, a bit of informal mentoring, I suppose, as it went on, but probably put it in a bit of a more structured format.
What more can I say? Thank you so much. You're a role model, and it's just great to have the chance to chat to you. I'm sorry we don't have much more time, but there we go. But Fiona Coghlan.
Thank you.